Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us back here at Lamden's channel. We have a special interview for you guys today as we sit here with Jeff Scott, the CIO and blockchain software engineer at Lamden. We're going to talk about how he got involved and dive into his role a little bit. Jeff, how are you? And are you ready to get into it?
I'm good, Michael. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty well myself. So tell us a bit about your introduction into the blockchain world, so to speak, prior to getting involved with Lamden.
Oh yeah, no, my story probably goes back to most people's story, which is like sitting in a garage with some friends and someone brings up Bitcoin or Ethereum and tries to talk you into it, and you slough them off almost immediately.
Naturally.
And then months later, you realize that they were probably right. That was my first introduction, was trying to get talked into buying some Bitcoin back in the day. But when I did finally get into it, I found a bunch of different projects, Lamden in particular. I was a Lamden fanboy early on. And after doing a little bit of cursory work for them, came onto the team full time.
Interesting. I feel like it's in the crypto sphere, it's much more organic how people wind up getting involved with projects. And when you first introduced to things, like you said, like you're introduced by somebody, you're like, oh, I don't know. And then as you dive into the space, you just kind of start exploring, you kind of find where you fit, talking to people like, I could help out here. The next thing you know, you're actually on the team.
We have a ton of people that currently work for us that are like that. And a lot of people in the community who do things for us just on contract. You need a lot of help, and a lot of crypto startups are just small companies. They're not massive companies that have everyone that, we don't have a bunch of different silos and departments that we can just go pull from. So, everyone's talented and everyone's got their little contribution they can make. And it's nice to be like, hey, who can write, some copy for us for our website? Excuse me. Some copy for a website. You get a bunch of people putting their hands up like, oh, I used to do that, or I do that at my, my job. And they're like, okay, we'll pay a couple hours to come, write some copy for a website. And I don't know where else you get that. I don't know what other sector has that kind of possibility. It's really, really nice.
Yeah. Often, one of my favorite things to say is maybe the real blockchain projects were the friends we made along the way, because that's often how it usually turns out with anything in the crypto sphere. But anyways, Jeff, so then tell me, what was it about Lamden that made you say like, okay, I'm all on board with this one?
Yeah, I think probably what brings most people to our community right away is we have kind of an ethos at Lamden, that technology shouldn't be as complicated as people tend to want to make it. There's, if you want a really complicated, technically perfect kind of project, those are out there, but they tend to put developers off, just your regular hobby developer, from being able to maybe make something with it, or making it not very approachable. So when I first started looking at blockchain, one was some investments which I made. The other one was to use it because I'm a developer. I like to create things. So I was like, I really fell into the Lamden I fell into the persona that, hey, this is going to be easy to use. You're going to be able to make something with this. Kind of like, hey, we got you type of stuff. And it's really something that we believe in. We believe that people should be using this type of technology. And that's really what brought me on. And I kind of wanted to get involved in any way possible.
Fair enough. That you were touching on a really good point there. There is currently, it's getting better, but the technicality of interacting with a lot of these blockchains, even just as on a user level, has been rather difficult. Not to mention, I guess the prime example everyone would be familiar with is the people trying to code on Ethereum with Solidity, and like no matter what background you come from, it's like Solidity is always difficult from what I've heard. So
yeah, and I went down that path early on.
Yeah,
was super discouraged, and
yeah.
and when I found Lamden, I just read a couple other Medium articles early on. I sort of immediately understood blockchain in a way that I didn't get from Ethereum.
Mhm.
The way that the contracting language works, the way the data is handled, the way it's presented to developers and stored, kind of immediately makes sense. And even though maybe that some of that is mirrored on Ethereum and some of the ideas are shared, I understood it more from Lamden than I ever did on any Ethereum tutorial I ever read.
Fair enough. So now tell me a bit more about your role as the CIO and as the blockchain software engineer. What do you handle from Lambden, like on the day to day?
Well, right now we've hired a bunch of people. We're growing, so I've my day to day has become more scoping work, trying to get the developers that we have going on certain things and managing them and their workload. The only kind of major development task I handle these days is the nodes, creating the node software, getting it packaged up and tested.
So without diving too deep into that, give me a little bit more about the notes, for instance, how things are going there, what comes next, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I mean it's really interesting. Like we released our mainnet with some nodes that we really believed in, and we put them out there, and Lambden basically ran them all. Like we have 6 nodes running in an infrastructure, like a web infrastructure, and it's not very decentralized. We ran into some issues decentralizing them that we could probably fix in the short term, but we actually realized that there's some things we'd like to do with these nodes from like a governance perspective. We really think we can maybe rethink some stuff with the current architecture. So instead of just making some quick fixes and putting out some nodes to the community to get this thing decentralized, it was kind of like, well, let's just take a step back. It's currently working. Like the blockchain's up, it works, it's fast, people are using it. So let's just maybe see if we can present maybe a better foot forward, so that when we go decentralized, these things maybe are a little bit more useful. To like bring it back to the developer experience, we found that even though the nodes worked as they did, there was some things from like a DApp perspective that maybe we thought we could do a bit better. We could probably serve the data to people a little bit better if they wanted to like get at the state. Yeah, so these new nodes we've been developing, we're pretty close. They tend to simplify the whole processing of transactions, the way they store state, the way they serve state, and it's still largely the same governance structure. So you can have a group of nodes and they can vote each other in, and the community can vote on nodes they want, and the nodes that are in there kind of like vote on different network mechanics. All that stuff is still the same, and if you've read a Lamden white paper, you'll understand delegates and master nodes and all that kind of cool stuff. But there's just certain simplifications we've made to the system. So I mean, the current status is almost there. Like we got a lot of the larger topics worked out. We've implemented them. We're just in testing. And when we get our staging network the way we want it, we're going to release this thing up on our test net. We're going to let people run the nodes. We're going to see how they work. We're going to see how things shake out. And after a period of time that we're happy about it, we'll just make it live. And at that point, then Lambda becomes decentralized. And that's really the goal. The goal is to have a decentralized blockchain where developers kind of own the network. Like,
Yeah.
if you run a DApp, it behooves you to also run a node so that your state is close to your DApp. But then your node also, is connected to the network, and you can run transactions straight to it. And there's just a network of people like you that also are running nodes. Together, you are maintaining this system that allows your app to function.
Yeah.
And that's really kind of the goal of the thing. Once we get there, the sky's the limit.
Yeah, fair enough. I'm curious. So So in this space, things tend to innovate and move very, very fast. However, you made a point where you said, "Listen, instead of trying to rush this, we're gonna get things done the right way. Things are currently working. Let's take sure steps as opposed to jumping all in at once." Do you ever think that this industry moves a little too fast, or the people expect it to move too fast?
From a protocol level, it doesn't move that fast. I mean, this stuff and the way blockchain works is pretty standard networking stuff, right? There's a lot of like cryptocurrency things that were new, and that when you combine things in a certain way, that was the new idea. Like blockchain was a new idea because a couple things were combined. And from a protocol level, it's all, pretty standard stuff. So what's new tends to be, new DeFi or like DApps. Like the
Yeah.
way people are using blockchain is what becomes new. NFTs all of a sudden blow up, but that's just a way to use blockchain. So because we're a layer one, because we're just a protocol, the blockchain, as long as we take on it, isn't really, we're not in danger of um, obsoleting ourselves with time, I don't think. And considering we already have an offering out there,
Hmm.
where people are able to take advantages of new trends.
Yeah, interesting. About to say, I'm glad I could get you on to dive into your perspective on this. Is there anything else that you think people need to understand from things at a more technical level that your average layman doesn't quite grasp?
Um, I guess like Lamden's, I think people might overcomplicate blockchain in general, or maybe some people don't think about this at all. But from a developer perspective, if you have something and you're like, well, I would love to create a DApp. What is a DApp? Well, a DApp is just an application that instead of a database for your application, your database is the blockchain, right? And the blockchain is just a state. So it's just a bunch of data that has values at any given time. So the best thing about a DApp is that you don't necessarily control your data. And that seems bad, but the users control their own data. And your app exists to merely a portal into the data that you want. So from a very simplistic level, a blockchain is just controlling who can change what data on the blockchain. And it's very simple. And it's that simple idea that kind of makes Lamden's implementation really great, because we're just taking down the barriers of what it takes to create those values on the blockchain, what it takes to change them, and what it takes to access them. So if you think of it like a global database, which is really what it is, with decentralized access, then it's really quite simple. From a developer perspective, your data is kind of exists and maintained in like a decentralized database. And I mean, that's super fun to even think about.
Yeah, you did touch on a pretty insightful point there when you said like for you guys it really isn't that complicated. When I talk to people who are very unfamiliar with blockchain, trying to explain it to people takes a bit of time to get them to understand it and grasp it. But it's not inherently more complicated, just that you're seeing more of the things go on at the current level. Over time, as it kind of blends in and the user interfaces get better, how much of this behind the scenes stuff do you think people will interact with at all?
Um, Behind the scenes, such as, what do you mean behind the
So
scenes?
your average person coming onto a DApp to just interact with it, how much of the blockchain will they have to even be aware about, say in like 5, 10 years from now?
Oh yeah. Yeah, you already see this with stuff like there's some NFT applications on like the App Store where they completely abstract away any knowledge of blockchain. And I think that that's kind of the right approach. You know, regular people don't even really care about blockchain. But if you said to them, "Hey, you own this, it's provable, I mean, and I can prove it to you," and they'd be, that's cool. Okay, I'm glad I own this. And I'm glad there's proof of it. But they don't really care what blockchain it's on. They don't even probably even care to see itself. They just like, if you tell them it's theirs and you can prove it, they're probably okay with that. So I don't think that you need to really glom on all this extra blockchain terminology and everything. An app can just be an app that happens to use data that's on a blockchain. And I think that's kind of the point I was trying to make earlier.
Yeah, yeah, fair enough. Well, Jeff, I feel like you've really walked us through like what you handle on the day to day. You've walked us through why you are on board with Lambda and some of the future things. So thank you for that, and thank you everyone for watching. If you guys have any questions for Jeff, go ahead and send them over, and we'll happily dive into them. But do you have any closing words for us before we go, Jeff?
Yeah, hey, thanks for doing this. So any way for us to get our message out to people and developers that like, hey, come and use us. We think we got something really cool and something great to offer. That's kind of what we want to do. So I
Perfect.
appreciate it.
Awesome, Jeff. It was a pleasure talking to you. Pleasure entertaining you guys. Let us know if you have any questions, and stay tuned for more coming soon. And have a wonderful day.